Okay, so I posted on Instagram a few days ago this setup. So I posted the forecast, then I posted the order being set, then I showed how the trade played out, and ultimately how I was able to capitalize on a 6 hour trade from this setup that we're going to run through today. People are asking for a more in-depth breakthrough, so this is what we're doing on YouTube, and I will start with giving you the context of where it came from. Obviously, we've had that huge bullish run from the US election, which has been very hard to miss, of course. But in this situation, I don't tend to trade a great deal, especially when we're breaking into new all-time highs, mainly because I don't believe that there's enough structure in place to take guided decisions with higher probability. Now, of course, you can see that I did take an opportunity here on one of the consolidation areas. That is something that I like to take, but equally, there was structure being formed. I wasn't trying to catch a falling knife or anything along those lines, at least in my opinion. When the price came up, we could see that it reached this all-time high here and then reversed to come back down. The significant thing that I liked about the all-time high was the fact that there were no wicks that were left at the top of this, which can be quite common. Not that that makes a difference as such in terms of where the price is going to go mid-term or even short-term, but for me, it was quite interesting given that the price had been completely fulfilled and we'd had this massive run up. It would infer that we could be setting up for something a bit more bearish, or at the very least, setting up for a consolidation zone, a wider consolidation zone in here. So by entering it in here, even if we didn't break much lower than this, we could get something along these lines where we get this sort of larger consolidation area before potentially either pushing up or then tanking from here. So what I'd posted on Instagram, and if you aren't following on Instagram, feel free to go across. That's where I will try and do more live updates. I won't tend to do that on YouTube just because it's easier to take my screenshots and demonstrate what I'm thinking. And there's no guarantee that I'll necessarily take the trade. When we look at this, what the forecast was that I had posted was my belief was is that when we had the price coming down here, we had a nice wick that had been left on the way down. We had some nice reactions around this level. Now, I don't take too much into account based on this because obviously that was in bullish trajectory going through there and reaching the all-time high. However, we did get a clear reaction in terms of where the lower body went and where the rejection wick stemmed from. And then also on the way down, we had this nicely sized wick that was left behind in terms of what would make sense for a retracement value before then price heading further down. Now, there were a few different schools of thought here that I was considering. One being that we had the reaction at this level, we had a bounce here, price comes down to this level, maybe we go back up towards the all-time high before then tanking all the way down and down into these sorts of areas down here. Now, the reason why I was a bit tentative on this particular level is because on the 4 hour, it's not particularly valid. On the 1 hour, this level, it makes a lot more sense in terms of where this wick was left before that drive up. Now, it's not to say that 1 hour levels aren't good. They are. They're very good. But I find that with the trading that I do, the 4 hours tends to be, if it's obvious or seen on the 4 hours, that's where a lot of the probability for me comes from. The lower down that I have to get the justification time frame wise, the less of the chance of me seeing that trade play out. So overall, I was curious, but then again, we did have this massive bullish move here, and there's a natural kind of bullish charge on the market in general. So I felt that this was a worthy point to see if it reverse, though not something that I'd be looking to take as a trade because it'd be quite messy trying to take it around this zone, especially with the obvious risk that was down into this zone underneath. So for me, what I then drew in was the price reversing here. My assessment would be that it would come up to this level. It would then come back down towards here before then reaching up to this level and then coming down to this one. That's the ultimate goal or plan in terms of how I viewed it. Now, overall, we can see how that played out as we sort of step forward on the replay tool. We can see that we get the reversal within here. So that was nice and clean. And we had the drive up towards this point. So at this stage, I think things are looking good. This is where I decided to set the trade in, and I'll pick the exact trade that I put in here. So this was what the forecast was that I had placed ahead of time. And for the obvious reason that I thought that this was the point where we were going to get a reaction. The other bit that I quite liked as well was how clean the reversal was. The reversal itself for me was nice and easy within that zone. Price coming back up here. We've got a nice area to play with as the price was moving towards it. And overall, I quite liked how it was setting up. We can see with this one, we then get tagged in. Now, I like the fact that we had this trading week. So for me, this heightened the probability that at least we would likely get a reversal. However, it's always worth bearing in mind, when I get these sorts of things, I know that there could be a reaction zone that sits sort of in the middle of this wick in general. So I'm conscious that even if I do get the reversal on the way down, that this is where we'd probably likely face some headwind. And sometimes this can be okay because just structurally it will work. Other times it can mean that we get the rejection, but actually it then goes up to this higher level from here as forming as a base. And that just comes down to, for me anyway, in terms of determining the bias of bullish versus bearish. As then the price, we get that reversal, and we can see then that it's going in the right direction, moving down quite nicely. And the things that we see here is that we're now at this midpoint. And so this is the interesting point for me as to what happens next. And we do get this reversal. Now, I'm viewing this on the 4 hour. If we come down onto the 1 hour, we can see a lot more detail in terms of how that price is trading. Now, for me, it's still showing me positive signs in the sense that this sort of initial move down from the reversal was broken from like a structural perspective as it was starting to form this consolidation. But for me, I still feel that this whole area of price here is still a good bearish consolidation to justify the move down to the bottom of the range that I'm looking for. And this retracement was expected based on the trailing wick that was left there. And it's still going to be within this structure. So even if we were to have price coming in, tagging into here and then coming down, the fact that it had broken this level was a good indicator for me that the price was going to head further down. And B is that it still had this consolidatory price action. So overall, I felt that it was still a good trade. However, given the fact that we did get the stagnation around here and not as much impetus, that was a point of reflection where maybe the probability dropped, though not enough for me to get out of the trade. Then from there, we can see that the price carried on moving up a bit. We got the rejection wick around here. This was around the US Open, and we often get these wicks when it comes down to the US Open. And but unfortunately didn't go anywhere near our stop loss, so we're all good. And really, at this point, it was just a case of trying to see what happened and letting it play out if need be. So far as I'm concerned at this stage, there isn't anything that is going against this trade happening, just that the probability had dropped slightly in terms of how the price had retraced here. But that the volatility around US Open can't be underestimated. So I don't read too much into price changes on the US Open itself, because I know that can be quite volatile, or is volatile in a lot of instances. Then we can see in the next 4 hours, it just comes tanking through and breaks in and takes that 6R. Now, obviously, my initial sort of mindset was that we would get a reversal down around this level. As the price plays out, it comes right down to that level, breaks through that level, and then continues going. And so really for me, the next thing that I was looking at, and I wasn't going to take this trade because I don't trade on Fridays, and we were heading into Friday with this, but it's this level here that I was thinking would be quite an interesting point of view as to whether, what we can look for heading into next week. And as we're coming up to the Friday, what I posted on Instagram was just an observational thing to see whether we actually get the reversal here, because this would be quite an interesting reversal with the price coming back up. We've got some nice areas where it could come up and meet. This level has predominantly been, well, it has been for bullish reasons. So I think it'd be quite interesting to see how the price would behave after breaking out of this structure with these wicks that we've got here. And as we can see, as the price plays out, it comes down, we get a reaction around that level, and then this is where we are up to the current day. So this is being filmed on Saturday, the 16th of November, about midday UK time. And we've just got this little, whether you want to call it engulfing or not, but we've got this reversal around this level. So for me, I don't tend to trade Mondays either, just because of that added volatility. So Fridays and Mondays are a no for me. And even if I did, this would be too risky for me to decide what was going to happen. There's every chance that it could just continue breaking. Obviously, this is the area that's going to be most interesting in seeing how we break into this whole zone here. But overall, for me, I think that I'm happy with the forecast. The fact that the price hasn't gone back up here, or at least didn't go back up there in terms of a reversal here or retracement in any way, shows to me that we've got some quite strong bearish momentum in this area. That being said, this really would define itself as kind of like this break up from that election cycle. So post the election, it would be interesting to see if we stay within here or whether we break into those lower areas. I think we'll get an answer on that come Monday, but it's not something that I'm going to predict at this point, as it's not something that I'll be looking at on Monday either. I'll be back on the charts Tuesday morning, taking a look to where we got. Curious to see if anybody saw that on Instagram, if they took it, or if anybody's got a view in terms of where they feel that US30 is going to. I am by no means an oracle when it comes to this, and who knows? Maybe it was just luck. Wishing you a good weekend, and I'll speak to you soon.